Welcome to The Explainer. So today, we're diving into a really wild, high-stakes experiment, taking a business from absolute zero to a fully functioning, profitable online storefront in literally just 7 days. It's a massive undertaking, and we're going to break down every single step of this journey, looking at it as a practical case study of what it really takes to launch today.
Okay, let's dive into this. This is the big central question we're exploring. Can you actually build a profitable online business from scratch in just a week? It's a question that really pits the incredible speed of modern e-commerce tools against the harsh, unforgiving realities of actually starting a business. We always see these highlight reels of instant online success, right? But today, we're focusing on the expectation versus the reality. We're going to see exactly what happens behind the scenes when you try to force an entire business lifecycle into a single week without the luxury of an existing social media following, no audience, no safety nets, just pure hustle and strategy.
Now, to make things even more interesting, the creators set a very specific, hard target for this challenge: 10,000 rupees. And that wasn't just some vague revenue goal, that was their pure profit target. They wanted to see if, after the dust had settled, all the inventory was bought, and the digital ads were paid for, they could walk away with 10,000 rupees in their pockets. Setting a rigid financial goal right out of the gate is fascinating because it completely changes how you make decisions. Every rupee spent on setup or marketing is a rupee subtracted from that final target. So that suspense really drove every action they took over the week.
All right, on to phase 1, building the e-commerce store. Historically, setting up a custom storefront took weeks, but our creator moved through a highly efficient 3-step sequence. First up, market research. They looked at SEO data to see what was actually trending and discovered that kitchen gadgets had incredibly high search volumes. Second, wholesale sourcing. They literally hit the pavement, going to local wholesale markets to secure inventory at rock-bottom prices. And third, and this is perhaps the most crucial for that ticking clock, AI website generation. By using an AI builder on Hostinger, they bypassed complex coding completely. They just typed in a prompt for a store selling trending gadgets, and boom, the AI generated the layout, the colors, and the foundational structure for their new brand, which they named Gadget Decor. It took minutes, not weeks.
So let's look closely at the specific inventory they sourced. Notice the markup here. They found an electric vegetable chopper at a wholesale cost of just 250 rupees and set the retail price at 799. They grabbed these simple motion sensor lights for an astonishing 15 rupees a pop, plus some karaoke speakers for 350. In total, they spent roughly 9,000 rupees to stock their virtual shelves. The strategy is crystal clear, right? Find products with massive margins. Because when your timeline is this ridiculously short, you absolutely need that padding in your pricing to absorb the hidden costs of doing business.
Moving right along to phase 2, the high cost of ads.
And this brilliantly illustrates our first major reality check. Having a beautiful website means absolutely nothing if no one knows it exists. Customer acquisition is the true battlefield. The difference here is stunning. The money spent on digital marketing to actually get eyeballs, 12,000 rupees, significantly exceeded the 9,000 rupee cost of the physical products themselves. This perfectly captures one of the most misunderstood dynamics for new entrepreneurs. Marketing, not your product, is usually your biggest expense.
So you might be wondering, why was the ad spend so aggressively high? Well, it comes down to 2 big factors: zero existing audience and a ticking clock. Without the zero-cost organic traffic you get from social media followers, or the time it takes to build long-term SEO on Google, they only had one choice. They had to buy expensive, immediate visibility. They had to spend heavily on Google and Meta to essentially force the algorithms to push their products into users' feeds. When you need sales in days, you pay a heavy premium for speed. That aggressive spending took a massive bite out of their overall profit margin, but it was absolutely mandatory just to get the ball rolling.
Which brings us to phase 3, the reality of manual order fulfillment.
Once those ads actually start working, the challenge shifts violently back to the physical world. This quote, right from the creators, is basically the golden rule of early-stage e-commerce. We can't hire anyone from outside for this, otherwise there will be no profit. It perfectly highlights the absolute necessity of manual order fulfillment for a startup. When your ad costs are literally eating up your margins, you just don't have the cash to outsource packaging to a logistics company or hire a temp worker. Every single penny saved on labor is a penny that keeps you closer to that 10,000 rupee goal. You've got to use your own sweat equity. And let me tell you, doing it yourself meant some chaotic physical labor. To keep costs at rock bottom, the founders drafted their friends for free labor, paying them in the universal startup currency, pizza. They spent days 5 and 6 just sitting on the floor, manually folding, taping, and labeling dozens of boxes. They even added personal touches, like sneaking chocolate bonus gifts into the very first box for a customer named Harsh, and then calling him on the phone to get real-time feedback. This level of grinding, unglamorous physical work is the invisible engine powering pretty much every new e-commerce site.
Finally, Phase 4. Calculating the final profit. So, the crucial point is here. The 7 days were up, they paused the ads to stop the bleeding, and it was time for the final math. Over the week, Gadget Decor brought in a really impressive 29,000 rupees in total revenue. But as they say, revenue is vanity, profit is sanity. We take out the 9,000 for the wholesale products. We subtract that massive 12,000 rupee hit from the ad campaigns. And remember, they paid themselves 0 rupees for all that manual labor. This leaves us with an initial gross profit of 8,000 rupees. Technically, yes, they fell just short of that 10,000 rupee goal. But honestly, turning any profit from scratch in a week is a huge win.
But hold on, we have to inject some real-world e-commerce nuance here. On paper, 8,000 looks great. In reality, not every order sticks. The creators wisely accounted for things like cash on delivery or COD rejections, which is super common, where someone just refuses the package at the door. They also estimated about 5 to 6 inevitable returns. Once you bake in those real-world variables, that initial profit shrinks. The realistic final take-home profit ends up sitting somewhere between 5,000 and 6,000 rupees.
Even with those shrinking margins, we really need to celebrate this number, 73. That is the total amount of individual orders they generated out of thin air in a single week. 73 people saw an ad, clicked a link, landed on a website that didn't even exist a few days prior, and trusted enough to buy something. It proves that the system works. Even with thin margins and high ad costs, creating a high-converting storefront in days is a very real possibility.
Which leaves us with this final, incredibly important question to chew on. Were 7 days of intense manual labor, high-stress ad campaigns, and pizza-fueled packaging worth a 5,000 rupee profit? It's a fascinating trade-off to think about. Modern AI tools give us unprecedented speed, but they definitely don't eliminate the sweat, the financial risk, or the harsh reality of buying customer attention. What do you guys think? Would you take on the 7-day challenge yourself? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I hope this gave you a brilliant new perspective on what it really takes to build an online business today.